Hello, my dear friends. Take a slow breath and let your body begin to rest. There is nothing you need to do right now, and nothing you need to remember. Tonight we are gently stepping back in time, to a world very different from ours, yet deeply human. We are going to explore how women survived pregnancy 1,000 years ago, in a time without modern medicine, hospitals, or machines. This is not a story of fear or pain, but a calm look at strength, routine, and quiet endurance, told slowly so your mind can relax as the night grows quiet. Imagine you are living 1,000 years ago. There are no pregnancy tests, no scans, and no doctors waiting in clean rooms. A woman often knows she is pregnant not through certainty, but through small changes in her body. A missed cycle, a feeling of heaviness, a quiet tiredness that settles in and stays. Pregnancy is not announced loudly. It is understood quietly, often shared first with older women in the family, mothers, aunts, or experienced neighbors who have seen these signs many times before. Knowledge is passed through memory, not books. Life does not slow down when a woman becomes pregnant. Daily work continues almost the same. She still walks long distances, prepares food, gathers water, and tends to the home. Rest is not something easily available, but small adjustments are made when possible. Other women may quietly take on heavier tasks. The community notices without speaking too much. Pregnancy is seen as a normal part of life, not a special condition, but also not ignored. It is respected in quiet ways. Food during pregnancy is simple and seasonal. There are no special diets designed for mothers, but there is an understanding of nourishment. Warm foods are preferred. Broths, grains, bread, milk when available, and cooked vegetables are common. Cold or spoiled food is avoided carefully. Cravings are understood and accepted, seen as the body asking for something it needs. There is no scientific explanation, only experience passed from one generation to the next. Clothing is loose and practical. Dresses and tunics are adjusted gradually as the body changes. There is no pressure to hide pregnancy or display it proudly. It simply exists. The growing belly is a quiet sign of life continuing, of family and community moving forward. Women often carry pregnancies while surrounded by other pregnant women, children, and elders. They are not alone in this experience. Religion and belief play a gentle role. Pregnancy is often seen as something guided by fate, by nature, or by a higher power. Prayers are whispered. Small protective charms may be worn, not out of fear, but tradition. These practices bring comfort, helping the mother feel supported in a world where much is uncertain. As weeks pass into months, the body grows heavier, and movement slows slightly. Rest comes in short moments rather than long breaks. Sleep is often lighter, interrupted by discomfort or the quiet movement of the child inside. Still, there is acceptance. This is how it has always been. There is no comparison to another way. As you imagine this slow, steady life, notice how calm it feels despite the difficulty. Pregnancy is not rushed. It unfolds naturally, supported by routine, community, and quiet knowledge rather than tools or instructions. As the night grows quiet, let us pause here. Let your breathing stay slow. Let your body rest. In the next part, we will gently explore how pregnant women prepared for birth, who helped them, and how knowledge of childbirth was shared long before hospitals existed. For now, remain still. Let rest continue in its own time. Imagine a woman living 1,000 years ago, waking slowly as the light enters a simple home. Her pregnancy is not announced loudly or discussed often, yet everyone around her quietly knows. Life does not pause for pregnancy. The day begins gently with small movements and careful steps. She rises from a firm sleeping place, wraps herself in familiar clothing, and joins the rhythm of daily life. There is no medical schedule, no written guide, only experience passed from older women to younger ones. This shared knowledge moves softly through the household, shaping how she eats, rests, and works. Daily tasks continue, but they change in subtle ways. Heavy lifting is avoided when possible. Long walks are shortened. Work is spread across the day so the body does not tire too quickly. Other women step in quietly, not making a show of help, but easing the load naturally. Grinding grain, preparing food, tending small animals, and keeping the home in order all happen at a slower pace. The body's signals are respected without being named. When tiredness arrives, rest is taken without guilt. Pregnancy is seen as a season, not a condition. Food plays a gentle but important role. Meals are simple and repeated, made from what the land offers. Bread, grains, vegetables, milk, and warm soups appear often. Rich or heavy foods are sometimes avoided, not by rule, but by habit and observation. Warm meals are preferred. Cold foods are eaten less. Water is taken carefully, sometimes warmed, sometimes mixed with herbs known to soothe the body. Eating is not rushed. It is part of the day's quiet structure, supporting strength without excess. Clothing changes slowly as the body grows. Loose garments are favored, tied gently rather than tightly. Nothing presses against the belly. Fabrics are familiar and soft from use. Comfort matters more than appearance. The body is allowed to expand naturally, without shame or attention. Pregnancy is common in this world. It does not make a woman unusual. It places her within a shared experience known across generations. Rest is woven into the day in small moments. Sitting by the fire, leaning against a wall, lying down briefly when the house grows quiet. Sleep at night comes early. The body follows the light, settling as darkness arrives. Dreams are accepted as part of pregnancy, sometimes shared, sometimes kept private. There is no urgency to explain them. They pass like everything else. As the weeks move on, older women offer gentle guidance. Advice is given softly, often through stories rather than instructions. They speak of what helped them, what felt right, what to avoid. This wisdom is calm and practical. It is not perfect, but it is trusted. The pregnant woman listens, choosing what feels right for her body. She is not alone, even when words are few. Religion and belief provide quiet comfort. Prayers are whispered. Small rituals are followed, not dramatically but steadily. These acts offer reassurance rather than control. They help the mind remain calm, especially at night. Faith is part of the background, steady and familiar, like the walls of the home. As you imagine this daily life, notice how ordinary it feels. Pregnancy is not treated as fragile, but it is treated with care. Strength is not forced. Weakness is not judged. Life moves forward at a gentle pace, allowing the body to do what it has always done. As the night grows quiet, let us pause here. Let your breathing slow. Let the image soften. In the next part, we will move gently toward community support, midwives, and the quiet preparation for birth. always calmly, always slowly. For now, remain still. Let the quiet deepen. Let rest continue in its own time. Imagine a woman living 1,000 years ago, moving through her days at a slower pace, guided by seasons rather than clocks. When pregnancy became visible, daily life adjusted quietly around her. Food, rest, and routine took on a gentler shape, not because people understood science, but because they trusted experience passed down through generations. Meals were simple and steady. Bread made from coarse grain, warm soups with vegetables, small amounts of meat when available, and milk or yogurt when animals allowed it. These foods were not chosen for nutrition in a modern sense, but because they were familiar, filling, and believed to bring strength. Eating was regular but modest, helping the body feel stable rather than heavy. Rest was woven naturally into the day. There were no strict rules, but there was awareness. Pregnant women were often encouraged to sit more, to pause during work, and to avoid heavy lifting when possible. Rest did not mean complete stillness. It meant moving slowly, working with care, and listening to tiredness when it arrived. Afternoon rests were common, especially during warmer months when the body felt heavy and the air was still. Lying down did not feel lazy. It felt necessary. Sleep at night was often long, broken into quiet stretches, supported by darkness and the absence of artificial light. The rhythm of pregnancy followed the rhythm of the land. As days shortened or lengthened, energy rose and fell. Women learned to accept these changes rather than fight them. When nausea or weakness appeared, it was met with patience. Simple remedies were used, like warm drinks, mild herbs, or plain foods. There was no expectation to feel strong every day. Tiredness was accepted as part of carrying life. Community played a quiet role in this period. Other women watched closely, offering advice without urgency. They shared what had helped them before, passing down knowledge through calm conversation rather than instruction. This sharing created reassurance. A pregnant woman did not feel alone in her experience. She was surrounded by others who had walked the same path, often many times. As the night grows quiet, imagine this slow life settling into calm. The body is supported by simple food, gentle movement, and long rest. There is no rush toward the future, only a steady waiting shaped by nature. In the next part, we will move closer to the emotional world of pregnancy, exploring fears, hopes, and the quiet strength women carried as birth slowly approached. For now, remain still. Let the quiet deepen, let rest continue in its own time. Imagine you are a woman living 1,000 years ago, carrying a child while life around you continues at its slow, steady pace. Pregnancy does not stop daily work. There is no long rest, no special room, and no clear separation between ordinary life and this important time. Each morning begins as it always has, with simple tasks waiting quietly. Water must be carried, food must be prepared, clothes must be washed and mended. Even as the body grows heavier, life continues gently but firmly, asking the same small efforts day after day. There is no rush, but there is no pause either. As the months pass, movement becomes slower. Steps are taken more carefully. Sitting and standing require more effort. Other women in the household often notice these changes before words are spoken. Without discussion, work is adjusted. Heavy lifting is quietly passed to someone else. Long walks are shortened. Tasks are shared more often. This support is not written or planned. but learned through generations of experience. Pregnancy is understood as part of life, not something separate from it. Food during pregnancy is simple and familiar. There is no special diet, but there is awareness. Warm foods are preferred. Soups, grains, bread, milk, and soft vegetables are common. Cold or harsh foods are avoided, not through science, but through tradition. Elders advise gently, passing down what they believe helps the body stay strong. Eating is slow and unhurried, often shared with family. These quiet meals become moments of rest within the day. Clothing is loose and practical. Dresses are tied gently, adjusted as the body changes. Comfort matters more than appearance. There are no mirrors to study the body, no pressure to look a certain way. Pregnancy is visible, natural, and accepted. Other women recognize the signs and offer silent understanding. A glance, a small nod, a hand offered when standing. Support exists without many words. Rest comes in small pieces. There is no idea of complete rest, but moments of sitting, leaning, and breathing slowly are woven into the day. Afternoons are quieter. Evenings are calm. As the sun lowers, work slows, allowing the body to recover gently. Sleep comes early, often before darkness fully settles, guided by tiredness rather than time. Emotionally, pregnancy brings mixed feelings. There is hope, but also quiet worry. Childbirth is known to be uncertain. Stories are remembered. Loss is not hidden in this world. Yet fear is not spoken loudly. It stays soft and distant, balanced by routine and faith. Women focus on the present day rather than the future moment. This keeps the mind calm and steady. Other women play an important role during this time. Mothers, sisters, neighbors, and midwives visit casually. They check in, talk quietly, and observe without pressure. Advice is shared slowly, never forced. Pregnancy is not faced alone. It is carried within a circle of shared experience where many have walked this path before. As you imagine these days passing slowly, notice how gentle and steady life feels. There is effort, but not panic. There is uncertainty, but also deep familiarity. Pregnancy is not treated as a crisis, but as a natural journey supported by routine, community, and quiet care. As the night grows quiet now, let this image soften and fade. Let your breathing slow. Let your body rest gently, just as these women rested between tasks, trusting time to move forward at its own pace. When the time of birth slowly arrived 1,000 years ago, it was not treated as a sudden event, but as a long and familiar moment that women and their communities had been quietly preparing for. Birth usually happened at home, in a room that felt known and safe. The space was kept warm, calm, and simple. There were no bright lights or loud voices. Instead, the atmosphere was soft and steady, shaped by routine rather than urgency. Women had seen other births before. They had grown up hearing calm instructions, gentle encouragement, and the quiet rhythm of support. Because of this familiarity, fear was often less sharp than we might imagine. Support during birth came mostly from other women. Midwives, older relatives, neighbors, and experienced mothers gathered nearby. These women were not formally trained in the modern sense, but they carried knowledge passed down through generations. They knew how to speak calmly, how to encourage slow breathing, and how to help the mother change positions to find comfort. This shared wisdom created a sense of trust. The mother was rarely alone. She was surrounded by voices that felt familiar and reassuring, guiding her through each quiet stage of the process. The body was allowed to work at its own pace. There was little interference unless it was clearly needed. The focus remained on patience, warmth, and steady presence. Water was offered, cloths were used for comfort, and quiet prayers or gentle words filled the room. Birth was understood as something the body knew how to do even when it was difficult. This belief helped women stay calm and focused, relying on the steady support around them rather than fear of the unknown. After birth, rest became essential. The mother was encouraged to lie still and recover. Other women took over daily tasks, bringing simple food and warm drinks. The home slowed down. Noise was reduced. The mother and child were kept close together, wrapped warmly, protected from cold air and stress. This period of rest was respected. Even in difficult lives, communities understood that recovery mattered. Without this rest, survival became harder, so it was guarded carefully. Emotionally, this time was quiet and inward. The mother adjusted slowly, supported by the same women who had guided her through birth. Advice was given gently, without pressure. There was no rush to return to work or normal routines. The body and mind were allowed time to settle. This slow return helped women regain strength even when resources were limited. As you imagine this calm, steady scene, notice how much of it is built around patience and presence rather than control. This is how many women survived pregnancy and birth 1,000 years ago. Not through technology or speed, but through shared knowledge, quiet support, and respect for the body's rhythm. As the night grows quiet again, allow this image to soften and fade. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing stay slow and gentle. Allow rest to continue calmly, in its own time. As the time of birth slowly approached, the world around a pregnant woman became quieter and more focused, not in a dramatic way, but in a calm and practical one. Birth, 1,000 years ago, was not treated as a sudden event that happened in isolation. It was expected, prepared for, and gently supported by the rhythms of everyday life. Women around her, often older relatives or experienced neighbors, stayed close in the days leading up to it. They did not speak loudly or give long instructions. Their presence alone carried reassurance. The woman was rarely alone. Even in silence there was company, and that company mattered deeply. When labor began, it was met with patience rather than urgency. There were no clocks to watch and no strict timelines to follow. The body was trusted to move at its own pace. The woman was encouraged to breathe slowly, to change positions, and to listen to what felt natural. She might lean forward, sit low, or rest between waves of effort. The room stayed dim and warm. Familiar smells filled the air. The goal was not speed, but steadiness. Calm helped the body do its work. Those who assisted her focused on comfort and reassurance. Soft words were spoken. Water was offered. Hands provided gentle support. There was no sharp separation between helper and family. Everyone present shared the moment quietly. Birth belonged to the household, not to an institution. This closeness created a sense of safety that allowed the woman to remain grounded, even during effort. Fear was not invited into the room. Attention stayed simple and steady. Tools were few and uncomplicated. Clean cloths, warm water, and familiar herbal scents were common. These were not used aggressively or often. They were there to support, not to interfere. Knowledge was passed down through observation and experience. Women learned by watching others long before their own time arrived. This familiarity reduced uncertainty. When the moment came, it did not feel unknown. It felt remembered. After the baby arrived, the pace slowed even more. There was no rush to separate mother and child. The baby was placed close, warmth shared, breathing matched. The room stayed quiet. Voices softened further. This early closeness helped both settle. The mother rested as the body gradually returned to stillness. The community remained nearby, not hovering but present, ready to help when needed and ready to step back when quiet was better. In the days that followed, rest was valued. Work was reduced. Food was brought to the mother. She was encouraged to sleep when possible and to remain warm. The newborn stayed close, wrapped and protected. Life outside the home continued, but gently, allowing space for recovery. This period was not rushed. Healing was given time. As you imagine this scene now, notice how calm it feels. There is effort, but not panic. There is support, but not noise. Birth in this time was a shared human moment shaped by patience and presence. As the night grows quiet, let this image soften and fade. Let your breathing remain slow. Let rest continue gently in its own time. As the time of birth slowly came closer, pregnancy in the medieval world did not turn into a loud or dramatic event. Instead, it became quieter. The home grew calmer. Work slowed. Voices softened. Birth was not rushed toward. It was waited for patiently. Women had no exact dates or clocks guiding them. They listened to their bodies. When signs appeared, they were accepted naturally, without panic. There was a deep understanding that birth followed its own rhythm and could not be forced. When labor began, it usually happened at home, in a familiar space. There were no hospitals, no bright rooms, and no unfamiliar faces. The room was warm, dimly lit, and prepared simply. Fresh cloth, clean water, and soft bedding were made ready. The goal was comfort and calm, not control. The woman was surrounded by people she trusted, often older women from the family or community who had seen many births before. These women did not rush or shout. They moved slowly, spoke quietly, and stayed close. Birth was considered a shared experience. While the woman did the work of bringing life into the world, she was never completely alone. Other women stayed nearby, offering gentle words, holding hands, and helping her change positions when needed. There was no single way to give birth. Women stood, sat, knelt, or leaned, choosing what felt most natural. The body was trusted to guide the process. Pain was expected, but it was not treated as an emergency. It was seen as part of the journey, something to move through rather than fight against. Religious faith often played a quiet role during birth. Soft prayers were spoken. Small charms or symbols might be placed nearby, not out of fear but for comfort. Faith gave meaning to the moment and helped calm the mind. It reminded everyone present that birth was part of a larger cycle of life, something women had been doing for generations before. After the baby arrived, there was no sudden celebration or noise. The moment was gentle and calm. The baby was cleaned, wrapped, and placed close to the mother. Warmth and rest were the first priorities. The mother was encouraged to lie still, breathe slowly, and recover. Food and drink were brought quietly. The room remained peaceful, allowing both mother and child to rest together. As you imagine this moment, notice how slow and grounded it feels. There is no rush, no bright lights, no loud voices, just warmth, familiarity, and patience. This calm environment helped women survive childbirth not through technology, but through trust, support, and shared knowledge passed quietly from one generation to the next. As the night grows quiet again, allow this image to soften and fade. You do not need to hold on to it. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing stay slow and gentle. Allow rest to continue calmly in its own time. After the child was born, the world did not suddenly change for women living 1,000 years ago. There were no long periods of rest planned in advance, no clear boundaries between recovery and daily life. Instead, the days after birth unfolded slowly, shaped by tradition, family help when it was available, and the simple need to continue living. Imagine a small room with soft light, the air calm and familiar, where a woman lies resting as much as she can, surrounded by the quiet presence of other women. Voices are low, movements are gentle, and time feels slower than usual. These first days were understood as fragile and important, even without modern knowledge. Women were encouraged to stay warm and still during this time. Warm cloth, simple wraps, and nearby fires were common, not as luxury, but as protection. Cold was believed to weaken the body, so warmth became a kind of care. Food was kept simple and nourishing, often warm broths, grains, or soft bread. These meals were meant to restore strength slowly, not quickly. Eating and resting followed a gentle rhythm, allowing the body to recover at its own pace. Other women played a quiet but vital role. Mothers, sisters, neighbors, and experienced midwives stayed close, helping with the newborn and watching over the mother. Their presence was calm and practical. They did not rush. They understood from experience that recovery took time. This shared knowledge passed from one generation to the next, created a soft circle of support. Even in hard lives, these moments of care brought a sense of connection and safety. The emotional experience after birth was also shaped by silence and routine. There were no explanations or labels for feelings, but women understood that emotions could rise and fall. Joy, fear, exhaustion, and calm all appeared quietly. There was space for these feelings to exist without being questioned. Life moved gently forward, allowing both body and mind to settle slowly. As days passed, women gradually returned to daily tasks, but not all at once. Movement increased little by little. Carrying the child, preparing simple food, or sitting outside in soft light became part of the slow return to normal life. There was no clear moment when recovery ended. Instead, strength returned gradually, woven back into everyday living. As you imagine these quiet days after birth, notice how gentle they feel even within a difficult world. Recovery was not rushed. It was allowed to unfold naturally, guided by tradition, patience, and shared understanding. This is how many women survived and continued step by step, breath by breath, breath by. As the night grows quiet now, let this image soften and fade. You do not need to hold on to it. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing stay slow and gentle. Allow rest to continue calmly, in its own time. When the time of birth finally arrived 1,000 years ago, it was rarely treated as a dramatic or public event. Birth happened quietly, inside familiar walls, surrounded by women who had seen it many times before. There were no hospitals, no bright lights, and no rushing voices. The room was dim, often warmed by a fire, and filled with calm, steady presence. For the woman giving birth, this familiarity mattered deeply. She was not surrounded by strangers, but by faces she trusted. Mothers, aunts, older sisters, neighbors, and midwives formed a quiet circle around her, offering support without urgency. Birth was not seen as something to fight or rush. It was understood as a slow process that followed its own rhythm. Women were encouraged to move, to change positions, to lean on others when needed. Sometimes they sat, sometimes they knelt, sometimes they stood supported by strong arms. The body was allowed to work in its own way. There was patience in the room. No one watched the clock. No one expected speed. Time stretched gently, shaped only by breath and rest. Midwives played a central role during this moment. They were not trained in schools, but through years of experience. They had seen many births, felt many pulses, and listened to many bodies. Their knowledge was quiet and practical. They spoke softly, using simple words to guide breathing and movement. They touched gently only when needed. Their presence alone often brought calm, because they carried the memory of many safe births before. Pain was understood differently than it is today. It was not ignored, but it was also not feared in the same way. Women expected discomfort, but they also expected strength within themselves. Other women reminded them that the body knew what to do. Hands were held, backs were rubbed. Water was offered in small sips. Songs or whispered prayers sometimes filled the space, not loudly, but softly, like a steady rhythm to breathe along with. There was also deep respect for silence. Moments of quiet were allowed. Not every sound needed a response. The woman giving birth was allowed to turn inward, focusing on her body rather than the world around her. This inward focus helped conserve energy and reduced fear. Birth was not something happening to her. It was something happening through her. After the child was born, there was no rush to separate mother and baby. The newborn was placed close, often directly against the mother's body. Warmth came first. Stillness came next. The room remained quiet, allowing both bodies to settle. The baby's first sounds blended with the low crackle of fire and soft breathing of the women nearby. The placenta was treated with care and patience as well. Nothing was hurried. Everything followed the body's timing. Only when the mother was stable and resting did attention slowly shift outward. Food was brought. Water was offered. The women stayed close, watching gently, ready to help if needed. This shared experience created strong bonds between women. Birth was not something faced alone. It was something carried together. Each woman present remembered her own births, or those she had witnessed before. This shared memory created calm and confidence, passed quietly from one generation to the next. As you imagine this ancient birth, notice how different it feels from modern images. There is no urgency, no noise, no fear-driven movement, just patience, warmth, and trust in the body's natural rhythm. This quiet approach is one of the key reasons many women survived pregnancy and birth 1,000 years ago, even without modern tools. As the night grows quiet now, allow this image to soften and fade. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing stay slow and gentle. Allow rest to continue peacefully in its own time. As the time of birth slowly approached, life around a pregnant woman changed in quiet and careful ways. There was no exact date marked on a calendar, no clear moment when everyone knew the birth would begin. Instead, the body gave small signs over days or weeks, and these signs were watched calmly by the women around her. Birth was expected, but never rushed. The pace was slow, guided by experience rather than instruction. Women had seen birth many times before, not as patients, but as witnesses, helpers, and daughters. This familiarity did not remove fear, but it softened it, making birth feel like a difficult yet natural passage rather than a sudden event. When labor began, it usually happened in familiar spaces. A small room, a corner of the home, or a warm area near a fire became the place where birth unfolded. The environment was kept quiet and steady. Loud voices were avoided. Movement was gentle. The woman was not forced to lie still. She moved as her body asked her to move, sometimes standing, sometimes kneeling, sometimes resting between waves of effort. The body led, and everyone else followed. This trust in the body was one of the strongest tools women had. Other women gathered nearby, not as professionals in the modern sense, but as experienced guides. Older women, mothers, and midwives stayed close, offering calm words, warm hands, and simple support. There were no machines, no measurements, no urgency unless something clearly went wrong. Instead, there was patience. Labor was understood to take time. Long hours were normal. Waiting was expected. The rhythm of birth matched the rhythm of life itself, slow and uncertain, but steady. Pain was real, but it was faced differently. There were no strong medicines to remove it. Instead, women relied on breathing, movement, and focus. Some used simple herbs, warm compresses, or rhythmic sounds to help the body relax. Pain was not seen as something to eliminate, but something to move through. This understanding did not make it easy, but it gave pain meaning, helping women endure it one moment at a time. During birth, men were usually absent or kept at a distance. This was a women's space, shaped by shared experience and quiet understanding. The presence of other women created a sense of safety and connection. The woman giving birth was not alone, even when the work became heavy. This shared strength helped many women continue when their bodies felt tired and weak. After the child was born, attention shifted gently but quickly. The baby was cleaned, wrapped, and brought close. The mother was watched carefully, rested, and given warmth. There was no celebration yet, only calm observation. Survival came first. Only after time passed did relief settle into the room. Birth was not seen as complete in a single moment. It was a process that continued quietly into the hours and days that followed. As you imagine this scene, notice how calm and steady it feels, even though it is difficult. Birth 1,000 years ago was not dramatic or rushed. It was slow, uncertain, and deeply human. Women survived not because conditions were easy, but because knowledge, patience, and shared experience carried them through. As the night grows quiet now, allow this image to soften and fade. You do not need to hold it. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing stay slow and gentle. Allow rest to continue calmly in its own time. After the baby was born, life did not suddenly become easier for women living 1,000 years ago. In many ways, the time after birth was just as demanding as pregnancy itself. There was no clear moment when danger ended, and comfort began. Instead, the days after delivery were slow, uncertain, and quiet. The mother's body was tired, weakened by months of carrying life and by the effort of birth itself. Recovery was not rushed. There were no expectations of quick strength or fast return to daily work. The body was allowed to move slowly, guided by pain, fatigue, and instinct rather than rules or schedules. Women were often kept close to warmth during this time. Fires burned low and steady. Extra cloth or blankets were used to keep the body warm, especially in colder seasons. Warmth was believed to help the body close, settle, and regain balance. Cold air was avoided, not out of fear, but out of experience. Women knew that exposure made weakness last longer. This quiet care was simple but meaningful, and it showed a deep understanding of the body's need for rest after such effort. Food after birth was chosen carefully. Meals were plain, warm, and easy to digest. Broths, grains, and soft foods were common, not because of medical knowledge, but because women noticed how these foods made the body feel calmer and stronger. Heavy or cold foods were often avoided at first. Eating was slow and gentle, just like everything else during recovery. There was no pressure to eat much, only to eat what felt safe and comforting. Rest was the most important part of recovery, but rest did not mean isolation. Mothers were rarely left alone. Other women stayed nearby, helping with the baby, the fire, and small household needs. This shared presence allowed the mother to remain still without worry. She could sleep lightly, wake often, and drift in and out of rest without fear. This kind of rest was not deep or long, but it was constant, spread gently across the day and night. The body healed in small stages. Strength returned slowly. Pain faded gradually. There was no clear line between being unwell and being well again. Healing was not measured. It was felt. Women listened to their bodies closely, adjusting movement and effort day by day. Some days were easier, some were not. This rhythm was accepted without frustration because it was familiar and expected. Emotionally, this time was quiet and inward. There were no celebrations or announcements in most places. Life continued softly around the mother. She bonded with the baby through closeness, warmth, and routine rather than instruction. Feeding, holding, and sleeping happened naturally, guided by instinct rather than advice. This closeness helped both mother and child settle into a shared rhythm. As you imagine this time after birth, notice how calm and unhurried it feels. There is no urgency, no pressure to recover quickly, no expectation to perform. This slow recovery was one of the ways women survived pregnancy 1,000 years ago. By allowing the body to move at its own pace, they gave themselves the best chance to regain strength in a world without modern care. As the night grows quiet again, let this image soften and fade. You do not need to hold on to it. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing stay slow and gentle. Allow rest to continue calmly, in its own time. In the world of 1,000 years ago, knowledge about pregnancy was not written in books or taught in schools. It lived quietly in the memories of women. It passed slowly from mother to daughter, from elder to younger, through stories told near fires and through gentle guidance given during daily work. A pregnant woman learned what to expect not from instruction, but from watching others before her. She saw how women moved differently, how they rested more often, how they ate certain foods, and avoided others. This shared experience created a deep, calm understanding that pregnancy was difficult but also natural and familiar. Older women played an important role during this time. They did not rush or panic. They had seen many pregnancies before, some easy, some hard. Their presence brought a sense of steadiness. When a woman felt uncertain or afraid, she was reminded that others had walked this path before her. Advice was simple and practical, focused on comfort and patience rather than control. This quiet reassurance helped many women endure months of discomfort without feeling completely alone. Pregnancy was woven into everyday life rather than separated from it. Women continued to cook, care for children, and manage homes, but at a slower pace. Others stepped in quietly when needed. There were no formal rules, but there was awareness. Heavy work was shared. Long journeys were avoided when possible. Rest was taken when the body demanded it. This flexible approach allowed women to survive in a world that offered little medical help. Emotional strength grew from acceptance. Pregnancy was not seen as something to master or fix. It was something to live through. Fear existed, but it was balanced by familiarity. Women understood that discomfort, weakness, and uncertainty were part of the process. This understanding did not remove danger, but it softened anxiety. Calm helped the body conserve energy, and patience helped the mind endure long months of change. As you imagine this quiet passing of knowledge, picture women sitting together, speaking softly, sharing small details about how to ease pain or find rest. There is no urgency in their voices, only experience. This shared wisdom was one of the strongest tools women had. It did not guarantee safety, but it gave comfort, confidence, and a sense of belonging during a vulnerable time. As the night grows quiet now, allow this image to settle gently. You do not need to remember the details. Let the calm strength of these women fade softly into the background. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing slow naturally. Allow rest to continue in its own time. As we move deeper into this long and gentle story, it becomes clear that pregnancy 1,000 years ago was not just a physical journey, but a deeply emotional and spiritual one. Women lived in a world where pain was expected, uncertainty was normal, and survival depended on patience more than control. There were no clear answers, no scans, no dates written on calendars. A pregnant woman carried not only a child, but also questions she could not ask, and fears she could not fully express. Yet somehow, day after day, she continued. She worked, she rested when she could, and she trusted life to unfold in its own slow way. Most women did not stop their daily tasks when they were pregnant. They cooked, cleaned, fetched water, tended animals, and cared for other children. Pregnancy happened within life, not apart from it. The body adapted because it had to. Movements became slower, steps more careful, but work rarely stopped completely. Rest came in small moments, sitting in the shade, leaning against a wall, or lying down briefly when dizziness arrived. These small pauses were precious. They allowed the body to recover just enough to continue. Emotionally, pregnancy could feel lonely. Many women lost babies before birth, and this loss was quietly accepted as part of life, even though it caused deep pain. Because of this, women often guarded their hearts. They loved carefully, hoping but not fully celebrating until the baby arrived safely. Joy and fear lived together, balanced quietly inside the mind. There were no support groups or doctors to reassure them. Comfort came from older women, whispered prayers, and shared understanding passed down through generations. As birth grew closer, awareness of the body became stronger. Women paid attention to signs, changes, and sensations. They trusted experience rather than instruction. Elder women, midwives, or mothers offered calm presence rather than control. Birth was guided, not managed. It was something the body was believed to know how to do on its own. This belief gave women quiet confidence, even when fear existed beneath the surface. Pain during pregnancy and birth was not described or analyzed. It was expected, not welcomed but accepted. This acceptance did not remove pain, but it removed resistance. The body moved with discomfort instead of fighting it. Breathing followed instinct. Sounds were allowed. Silence was allowed. Every woman experienced it differently, but all understood that the process was beyond words. After birth, recovery was slow and uncertain. Women rested when possible, often surrounded by other women who helped with food, warmth, and care. There were no strict rules, only shared wisdom. Warmth was valued. Quiet was valued. The mother was protected for a time, not as a patient, but as someone who had crossed something important. Even then, life returned quickly. Children needed care. Work waited. The body healed gradually, often while continuing daily tasks. As you imagine these women now, notice their quiet strength. They did not have modern knowledge, but they had deep trust in life and in each other. Their survival was not heroic in a dramatic sense. It was steady, patient, and deeply human. This strength did not come from power, but from acceptance, routine, and resilience. As the night grows even quieter, allow this image to soften in your mind. You do not need to remember details. Just feel the calm presence of generations of women who lived, carried life, and endured quietly. Let your breathing slow. Let your body rest. In the next part, we will gently move toward the final reflections of this journey, looking at what modern life can quietly learn from these ancient experiences. For now, remain still. Let the quiet deepen. Let rest continue in its own time. As the months of pregnancy move slowly toward their end, one of the most important supports for women 1,000 years ago was not written knowledge or formal teaching, but quiet experience passed gently from one generation to the next. Mothers, grandmothers, aunts, and older women of the community carried memories in their bodies and voices. They remembered what helped, what calmed the pain, and what brought comfort during long days and restless nights. This knowledge was shared softly, often while sitting together, working slowly, or resting in the shade. There were no instructions spoken loudly, only gentle guidance offered when needed, shaped by care rather than authority. Pregnant women were rarely alone during this time. Even when life was hard, there was an understanding that pregnancy required patience and watchfulness. Older women kept a quiet eye on the mother-to-be, noticing changes in her movement, her energy, and her mood. If she grew too tired, she was encouraged to rest. If her body felt heavy, she was shown ways to sit or lie that brought relief. These small acts of attention helped women feel supported in a world where medical help did not exist in the modern sense. Stories were also part of this support. Not dramatic stories, but calm reminders that others had walked this path before. Women heard about births that were difficult but survived, pregnancies that ended safely, and children who grew strong. These stories were not meant to frighten but to steady the mind. Fear was dangerous in pregnancy, and calm was valued deeply. Listening to familiar voices and shared memories helped reduce anxiety and allowed the body to relax more easily. As the night grew quiet, pregnant women often rested surrounded by familiar sounds. The low murmur of family nearby, the soft crackle of fire, or the gentle movement of the household created a sense of safety. Sleep was not always deep, but it was held within routine and familiarity. This sense of being held by the community helped women endure discomfort without feeling overwhelmed by it. The strength required to survive pregnancy 1,000 years ago was not loud or heroic. It was slow, patient, and steady. It showed itself in daily endurance, in continuing to eat, to rest, and to trust the body despite uncertainty. Women learned to listen closely to themselves and to those who had come before them. This quiet strength became part of family memory, carried forward to the next generation. As you imagine this gentle passing of knowledge and care, notice how calm it feels. Life moved slowly, support came quietly, strength was shared without being named. This is how many women survived pregnancy long ago, not through control, but through patience, connection, and trust. As the night settles again, allow this image to soften and fade. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing stay slow and gentle. Allow rest to continue calmly, just as these women once rested under the same quiet night. As the months of pregnancy slowly moved toward their end, women 1,000 years ago were surrounded by a quiet network of shared experience. There were no books to read, no doctors to explain each stage, and no written instructions to follow. Instead, knowledge lived in voices, memories, and daily observation. Older women watched younger ones closely. Mothers remembered their own pregnancies. Grandmothers carried stories from even earlier times. This knowledge was not spoken loudly or formally. It was shared slowly through simple advice, gentle warnings, and calm reassurance. A woman learned what to expect not from study, but from listening and watching. Day after day, pregnancy was not hidden or treated as unusual. It was part of ordinary life. Women worked, rested, cooked, walked, and prayed while carrying new life. Their bodies changed gradually, and those changes were accepted as natural. There was fear, of course, but it was quiet and unspoken. Fear was balanced by familiarity. Women had seen births before. They had watched sisters, neighbors, and relatives go through the same path. This shared experience created a sense of calm endurance. Pregnancy was dangerous, but it was also deeply familiar. As the body grew heavier and movement slowed, daily tasks were adjusted gently. Other women stepped in without being asked. A heavier basket was carried by someone else. A longer rest was allowed. These small acts of support were not seen as kindness, but as duty. Everyone understood that survival depended on community. No woman faced pregnancy completely alone, even in the poorest villages. Support was simple, practical, and quiet. Emotionally, pregnancy brought moments of reflection. In a world where life was uncertain, carrying a child meant hope mixed with fear. Women prayed softly, not always for safety, but for strength. Religion played a calming role. Faith offered meaning to suffering and comfort during uncertainty. Pregnancy was often seen as part of a larger plan, something guided by forces beyond human control. This belief helped women accept what they could not change. As you imagine these final weeks of pregnancy long ago, notice the calm rhythm of life around them. No urgency, no rushing, just steady days, gentle support, and quiet preparation. There were no birth plans written down, but there was trust in tradition and in the women who came before. Strength was not loud, it was steady, passed from one generation to the next. As the night grows quiet now, allow this image to soften and settle. You do not need to hold on to it. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing slow gently. In the next part, we will move closer to the moment of birth itself, always calmly, always softly. 1,000 years ago, one of the most important supports a pregnant woman had was not written knowledge or formal medicine, but the quiet wisdom passed down through generations of women. Mothers, grandmothers, aunts, and older sisters carried memories of pregnancy within their bodies and stories. These memories were shared slowly, often during simple daily tasks like preparing food, spinning wool, or sitting together in the evening. Advice was not given loudly or with certainty. It was offered gently, shaped by experience rather than theory. A young woman learned what to expect not from books, but from watching other women live through pregnancy and birth again and again. This shared knowledge helped reduce fear. Pregnancy was still difficult and uncertain, but it was familiar. Women knew which changes in the body were normal and which needed attention. They learned how to rest when the body felt heavy and how to keep moving gently to stay strong. They learned when to eat more, when to sleep longer, and when to ask for help. This guidance created a sense of continuity, making pregnancy feel like part of a long human pattern rather than a lonely experience. Emotional support mattered deeply. Pregnant women were rarely left completely alone. Even when men were absent due to work or travel, other women stepped in quietly. Someone helped with heavy tasks. Someone stayed nearby during long afternoons. Someone listened when worries appeared. These small acts of care helped the mind stay calmer, which in turn helped the body cope better. Stress was not understood scientifically, but it was recognized through experience. Calm surroundings were valued, especially as the pregnancy progressed. As birth approached, the presence of experienced women became even more important. Familiar voices, known hands, and trusted faces helped the pregnant woman feel safer. Fear was softened through reassurance and routine. Even when outcomes were uncertain, the sense of being supported gave strength. This quiet strength, built through shared experience, allowed many women to endure pregnancy despite limited resources and difficult conditions. As you imagine this slow passing of wisdom from one generation to the next, notice how gentle and steady it feels. There is no rush here, no pressure to explain everything. Just calm repetition and shared understanding. This collective knowledge helped women survive pregnancy not through control, but through connection. As the night grows quieter now, allow this image of shared strength to soften and fade. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing slow naturally. Allow rest to continue gently, in its own time. As we move deeper into this long, gentle story, it becomes clear that what truly carried women through pregnancy 1,000 years ago was not medicine, not comfort, and not certainty, but a quiet strength built slowly over generations. This strength was not spoken about openly, and it was not praised loudly. It lived in daily routines, in habits learned from watching mothers, grandmothers, and older women move carefully through the same path. Pregnancy was not seen as something new or rare. It was woven into everyday life, expected, accepted, and endured with patience rather than hope for ease. Women learned early that pregnancy was not a time to stop living. Work continued, though it often changed shape. Heavy tasks were avoided when possible, but movement never stopped completely. Walking, bending, cooking, carrying water, and tending animals remained part of life for many women, even as their bodies grew heavier. This steady movement helped keep the body strong, even when food was limited and rest was uneven. There were no guides or written instructions, only observation and experience passed quietly from one woman to another. Emotionally, pregnancy was carried with calm restraint. Fear existed, but it was rarely given space to grow. Talking too much about fear was believed to invite trouble. Instead, women focused on what could be controlled: eating when food was available, staying warm, avoiding unnecessary strain, and listening to the body's signals. There was an understanding that worrying did not change outcomes, and so worry was kept soft and distant, never allowed to take over the mind completely. The body itself was trusted in a way that feels unfamiliar today. Pain, discomfort, and exhaustion were expected parts of the journey. They were not signs that something was wrong, but signs that something important was happening. Women learned to move with pain rather than fight it, to rest when possible and endure when rest was not available. This acceptance reduced panic and allowed the mind to remain steady, even when the body struggled. There was also a deep sense of connection to the women who had come before. Pregnancy was never faced alone. Even when a woman was physically isolated, she carried the memory of others within her. The knowledge that countless women had survived the same path under the same sky, on the same land. This unspoken connection created a quiet form of courage. If others had endured, then she could endure too. As you imagine this long chain of women, each carrying life forward under difficult conditions, notice how calm the picture feels despite the hardship. There is no rush, no dramatic moment, just steady continuation. This is how women survived pregnancy 1,000 years ago. Not through ease, but through patience, routine, and quiet resilience shaped slowly by time. As the night grows quieter now, allow this image to soften. Let the strength of these women rest gently in the background of your thoughts. You do not need to hold on to it. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing stay slow and easy. Allow rest to continue naturally, just as it has through countless generations. After the long hours of birth had passed and the room slowly returned to stillness, life did not suddenly become easy for women 1,000 years ago. The days after childbirth were quiet, careful, and deeply important. The mother's body was weak and tired, yet there was little chance for full rest. Even so, these days were treated with a gentle respect. Family members and other women stayed close, moving softly, keeping noise low, and allowing the new mother to remain mostly still. This was a time when strength was shown not through action, but through patience and endurance. The body needed time to recover, and people understood this in simple ways. Warmth was protected carefully. Cold air was kept away. The mother was often wrapped in layers of cloth and encouraged to remain near the hearth or in the warmest part of the home. Food was simple and nourishing, often warm soups or soft breads given slowly throughout the day. These meals were not large or heavy, but steady, meant to restore energy little by little. Recovery was not rushed. It followed the body's own quiet pace. There was also a strong belief that the days after birth were fragile. The mother was thought to be open, both physically and spiritually. Because of this, she was rarely left alone. Someone stayed nearby, not necessarily speaking, but simply being present. This presence was calming. It reminded her that she was not facing this recovery alone. The shared silence was just as important as any words. Caring for the newborn was shared when possible. Older women, sisters, or neighbors helped hold the baby, clean cloths, and prepare food. This allowed the mother brief moments of rest, even if sleep came only in short waves. Night and day blended together. Time was not measured. The focus stayed on gentle care and slow recovery. Emotionally, these days were mixed. There was relief that birth had passed, quiet joy in new life, and also deep tiredness. Women were not expected to express everything. Feelings were allowed to settle naturally. There was no pressure to return quickly to normal life. Healing was understood as something that happened slowly, supported by warmth, food, rest, and community. As you imagine these quiet days after birth, notice how soft the world feels. Movements are slower. Voices are lower. Light enters gently. This calm space allowed women to regain strength, bit by bit. Survival did not come from speed or force, but from allowing the body to rest when it could and accepting help without shame. As the night grows quiet again, let this image soften and fade. You do not need to hold on to it. Let your breathing stay slow and easy. Let your body remain still and supported. Rest continues in its own gentle way. 1,000 years ago, pregnancy was not faced alone, even when it felt frightening or uncertain. Women survived largely because of quiet knowledge passed gently from one generation to the next. Mothers spoke softly to daughters. Older women watched carefully and advised slowly. There were no books, no charts, and no medical words, but there was experience, repeated again and again across lifetimes. This shared understanding created a quiet system of care that did not rely on science, but on memory, observation, and trust. Women learned what foods helped the body feel stronger, which movements eased discomfort, and when rest was more important than work. This knowledge lived in everyday life, not written down, but remembered through practice. Pregnant women were often surrounded by other women who had already lived through childbirth. These women noticed small changes, shifts in breathing, posture, and energy. Advice was given calmly, without urgency. A woman might be told to slow her steps, to sit more often, or to avoid heavy lifting as her body changed. These suggestions were simple, but they helped protect both mother and child. Pregnancy was understood as a natural state, but also a delicate one, requiring patience and care. Emotional support played a quiet but important role. Fear was common, but it was rarely spoken loudly. Instead, women were reassured through routine and presence. Sitting together, sharing simple tasks, and resting side by side helped calm the mind. Pregnancy was woven into daily life, not separated from it. This helped women feel less alone, even when outcomes were uncertain. Midwives, when present, were trusted figures not because of formal training, but because of experience. They had seen many births and understood the rhythms of the body. Their role was gentle rather than controlling. They guided, watched, and waited. During labor, they encouraged calm breathing, slow movement, and patience. Birth was allowed to unfold at its own pace whenever possible. This patience often made the difference between survival and exhaustion. Even when conditions were harsh, women relied on their body's natural strength. They learned to listen inwardly, recognizing signs of fatigue or distress. Rest was taken when possible, even if briefly. Sleep came in short stretches, but it mattered. The body recovered in small ways, moment by moment. Survival was not dramatic. It was quiet and steady. As you imagine this shared strength passing softly from woman to woman, notice how calm and grounded it feels. There is no rush here, no loud instruction, only careful attention and patience. This quiet network of care is one of the reasons women were able to survive pregnancy 1,000 years ago. Not because the time was safe, but because women supported one another with knowledge shaped by experience. As the night grows quieter now, allow this image to soften and fade. You do not need to remember every detail. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing stay slow and gentle. Allow rest to continue naturally, carried by the same calm that once supported generations before. By the time a woman reached the later months of pregnancy 1,000 years ago, her body carried not only a child, but the quiet knowledge of generations before her. This knowledge was rarely written down. It was passed slowly, gently, from mother to daughter, from aunt to niece, from elder women to younger ones. It lived in soft advice spoken near the fire, in careful touches, in stories shared during long evenings. These women understood pregnancy not as a medical condition, but as a natural, demanding season of life that required patience, endurance, and calm acceptance. Their strength was not loud or dramatic. It was steady and quiet, built through daily experience. As the pregnancy progressed, women were often encouraged to slow their pace. Heavy work was reduced when possible, not always because help was available, but because experience had shown that rest mattered. Sitting for long periods, walking gently, and avoiding sudden strain became part of daily life. These adjustments were subtle and practical. No one spoke of hormones or body systems. They simply noticed what helped women feel less tired and more stable. The body was listened to closely, and its signals were respected in simple ways. Food continued to play an important role in these final months. Warm meals were preferred. Thick soups, grains, and soft breads were common, offering steady energy. Cold or harsh foods were often avoided, not through scientific reasoning, but through tradition and observation. Water was sipped slowly. Herbal drinks were prepared with care, often chosen because generations before had trusted them. Even when food was scarce, there was an understanding that a pregnant woman needed consistency more than abundance. Emotionally, these months were often a mix of quiet worry and deep acceptance. Childbirth was known to be dangerous, and women were aware of this without needing to speak it aloud. Fear was not ignored, but it was softened through shared experience. Elder women reassured younger ones by their presence alone. They had lived through this before. Their calm became contagious. Pregnancy was not faced alone. It was surrounded by women who understood its weight. Daily rituals helped bring comfort. Simple prayers, gentle stretching, slow walks at sunrise or sunset, and time spent in familiar spaces all helped the mind stay calm. Silence was not empty. It was grounding. Many women found peace in repetition, doing the same small tasks each day, allowing the mind to settle. These routines prepared them quietly for what was to come, without forcing them to think too far ahead. As childbirth drew closer, the focus shifted inward. The body felt heavier. Movement slowed. Sleep became lighter and more broken, yet rest was still valued. Even lying still was considered helpful. Women were encouraged to stay warm, to keep their bodies relaxed, and to remain close to those they trusted. There were no hospitals, no bright rooms, no unfamiliar faces. Birth was expected to happen in familiar surroundings, often the same place where the woman had lived most of her life. What stands out most in this time is the quiet resilience of these women. Without modern medicine, without guarantees, they relied on community, tradition, and deep inner strength. Their survival was not based on comfort, but on connection. They trusted the knowledge passed down through generations. They trusted their bodies even when afraid. They trusted the presence of other women who stood beside them not with answers, but with understanding. As you listen now, imagine this calm strength settling around you. The soft voices, the slow movements, the feeling of being supported without needing explanation. Let the night grow quieter as this part comes to rest. In the next part, we will gently move closer to the moment of birth itself. Always slowly, always calmly. For now, remain still. Let your breathing stay soft. Let rest continue naturally. As we move deeper into this long, gentle story, it becomes clear that one of the greatest strengths women had 1,000 years ago was not medicine, tools, or written knowledge, but each other. Pregnancy was rarely faced alone. Older women, mothers, aunts, neighbors, and experienced midwives quietly surrounded pregnant women, offering guidance that had been passed down through memory rather than books. This knowledge was not spoken loudly or formally. It lived in everyday actions, soft advice, and careful watching. A woman learned how to carry her body differently, how to rest when needed, and how to listen to small changes simply by observing other women around her. These lessons were shared slowly, often during simple daily tasks. While preparing food, spinning cloth, or sitting together in the evening, stories were told about past pregnancies, difficult births, and moments of relief. These stories were not meant to frighten, but to prepare. They taught patience, endurance, and acceptance. Through these shared moments, fear was softened. A woman learned that pain was part of the journey, but so was strength. This emotional support helped many women survive not just physically but mentally as well. During pregnancy, women were often protected from the hardest labor when possible. While life was never easy, communities understood the value of preserving both mother and child. Tasks were adjusted, heavy work was shared, rest was encouraged, even if only in small moments. This care was not perfect, but it was intentional. It showed a quiet understanding that pregnancy required gentleness, even in harsh conditions. As birth approached, this network of women became even more important. The presence of familiar faces brought calm. Soft voices reminded the mother to breathe, to move slowly, and to trust her body. There were no machines, no bright lights, and no rushed commands. Birth happened in familiar spaces, surrounded by people who had lived through it before. This familiarity helped the body relax, which often made labor more manageable. After birth, support continued. Recovery was slow, and women were encouraged to rest as much as possible. Other women helped with food, warmth, and care for the newborn. This collective effort allowed the mother's body to heal gradually. Even in times of loss or difficulty, women grieved together, sharing sorrow quietly rather than in isolation. As you imagine this shared strength, notice how gentle and steady it feels. Survival did not come from force or control, but from connection. This quiet bond between women was one of the most powerful tools they had. It helped them endure pain, fear, and uncertainty in a world without modern medicine. As the night grows calm once more, allow this image of shared support to soften and fade. You do not need to hold on to it. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing stay slow and gentle. Allow rest to continue quietly, in its own time. As we move deeper into this long and gentle story, it becomes clear that one of the greatest supports for women 1,000 years ago was not written knowledge or formal medicine, but the quiet strength passed from one generation to the next. Pregnancy was not something learned from books or instructions. It was learned by watching, listening, and remembering. Girls grew up seeing mothers, aunts, sisters, and neighbors carry children, rest when needed, and return slowly to daily life. This constant presence of lived experience created a calm understanding of pregnancy as a natural part of life, even when it was difficult. Older women played a central role in guiding younger ones. Their advice was not loud or dramatic. It was simple and practical, shaped by years of observation. They knew when a woman needed more rest, when she needed warmth, and when she needed company. These women often stayed close during the later months of pregnancy, offering reassurance through presence rather than words. This closeness helped reduce fear. A woman was rarely alone with her worries. Even in quiet moments, she knew others had walked the same path before her. Knowledge moved gently through everyday conversation. While cooking, while spinning wool, while sitting near the fire, women shared small details about how the body changed, how to breathe more slowly, how to find comfort while sleeping, and how to conserve energy. This sharing did not feel like instruction. It felt like storytelling, woven into daily life. Over time, this created confidence. A pregnant woman trusted her body more because she trusted the women around her. Even after birth, this shared strength continued. Recovery was not rushed. New mothers were often encouraged to stay close to home, to rest, and to allow others to take on some of their usual work. Older women helped with food, with warmth, and with caring for the baby during short periods so the mother could sleep. This support was not perfect or guaranteed, but when it existed, it made a deep difference. It reminded women that survival was not always an individual effort, but a shared one. As you imagine this quiet circle of support, notice how calm it feels. There is no urgency, no strict timeline, no pressure to return quickly to normal life. Just patience, presence, and shared understanding. This is one of the reasons women were able to survive pregnancy 1,000 years ago. Not because the world was gentle, but because women held each other gently within it. As the night grows quiet again, allow this image to soften and drift away. You do not need to remember the details. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing stay slow and easy. Allow rest to continue calmly, carried by the same quiet strength passed down through time. As we move deeper into this long and gentle story, it becomes clear that one of the greatest sources of survival for pregnant women 1,000 years ago was not medicine, tools, or knowledge written in books, but the quiet strength passed from one woman to another. In villages, towns, and small communities, pregnancy was rarely faced alone. Older women, mothers, grandmothers, and experienced midwives carried memories of many births. These memories were not spoken loudly or proudly. They were shared slowly, in kitchens, near fires, during long evenings when work was finished and the night grew quiet. Younger women listened, not with excitement but with calm attention, knowing that these stories might one day guide their own bodies through the same path. This shared knowledge was gentle and practical. It was not full of explanations or reasons. It focused on what helped and what harmed. Women learned which foods felt comforting, which movements eased discomfort, and which times of day were best for rest. They learned how to breathe during difficult moments, how to stay still when the body asked for stillness, and how to accept discomfort without fear. These lessons were not meant to remove pain completely, but to make it bearable. Pregnancy was understood as a natural part of life, difficult but expected, and this acceptance softened much of the fear that modern minds might imagine. Emotional support played a quiet but powerful role. Pregnancy brought uncertainty, and uncertainty brought worry, but these worries were shared rather than hidden. Women spoke softly about their fears, often while working side by side. No one rushed to solve these fears. Simply being heard was enough. This shared emotional space helped calm the mind, which in turn helped the body endure long months of physical change. In a world where daily life was already hard, this shared calm mattered deeply. As birth approached, this circle of women grew closer. Pregnant women were watched carefully, not in a controlling way but in a protective one. Heavy work was gently taken from them when possible. Rest was encouraged, especially in the final weeks. The body was respected even when its struggles were not fully understood. This respect created trust, and trust allowed women to face birth with steadiness rather than panic. During labor, the presence of other women was grounding. Familiar voices, steady hands, and calm instructions helped keep fear from taking over. There were no loud commands or rushed movements. Everything happened slowly, guided by experience rather than urgency. Pain was acknowledged, not ignored, but it was not treated as a disaster. It was treated as something that passed, moment by moment, breath by breath. After birth, the support continued. Mothers were not expected to immediately return to full work. They were given time to rest, to heal, and to bond with their child. Other women helped with food, cleaning, and care when they could. This period of rest was fragile and not always guaranteed, but when it existed, it made survival more likely. The body recovered slowly, just as it had changed slowly during pregnancy. As you imagine this quiet network of women, notice how calm it feels. There is no heroism, no drama, no celebration, just steady presence, shared experience, and patience. This is how many women survived pregnancy 1,000 years ago. Not through certainty, but through connection. Not through control, but through trust in the body and in each other. As the night grows quiet once more, allow this image to soften and fade. You do not need to remember every detail. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing stay slow and gentle. Allow rest to continue calmly, carried by the same quiet strength that once moved through these ancient lives. As we reach this later part of the story, it becomes clear that survival during pregnancy 1,000 years ago was not built on tools or knowledge alone, but on something quieter and deeper. It was built on strength that was passed gently from one woman to another. Mothers learned from their mothers. Sisters learned from watching sisters. Young girls grew up surrounded by the rhythms of pregnancy, birth, and care, long before it became their own experience. Nothing was written down in books, but everything was remembered in hands, voices, and daily habits. This shared memory created a calm familiarity with pregnancy, even though it carried great risk. In villages and small communities, women rarely faced pregnancy completely alone. Even when medical help did not exist, emotional presence did. Older women stayed nearby, offering quiet guidance rather than instruction. They knew when to speak and when to remain silent. They knew when rest was needed and when movement helped. This wisdom did not come from study, but from lived experience repeated over many years. Pregnancy became part of the natural flow of life, woven into work, rest, prayer, and family routines. As birth approached, the atmosphere often became slower and more inward. Work was reduced. Loud activity was avoided. The pregnant woman was encouraged to stay warm, calm, and close to familiar surroundings. Comfort did not mean softness or ease, but predictability. Familiar walls, familiar faces, and familiar sounds helped the mind stay steady. Even fear, when it appeared, was held quietly rather than spoken loudly. Calm was seen as protective. After birth, survival continued to depend on patience and care. Recovery was slow. There was no expectation to return quickly to daily work. The body was allowed time, even if that time was filled with discomfort. Other women stepped in to help with food, water, and basic tasks. This shared responsibility made survival possible, not because it removed danger, but because it reduced isolation. Healing happened in community. As you imagine this quiet strength being passed from one generation to the next, notice how gentle it feels despite the hardship. This is how women survived pregnancy 1,000 years ago. Not through control, but through acceptance. Not through certainty, but through trust in each other and in the body's ability to endure. As the night grows quieter now, allow this image to soften and fade. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing stay slow and natural. In the next part, we will gently move toward the closing reflections of this long journey, where everything settles into rest. As this long and gentle journey comes to its quiet end, it becomes clear that pregnancy 1,000 years ago was not defined by comfort, safety, or medical knowledge, but by endurance, patience, and deep inner strength. Women lived in a world where pain was expected, uncertainty was normal, and survival depended on acceptance rather than control. There were no clear answers, no guarantees, and no protection beyond experience passed quietly from one woman to another. Yet, life continued. Birth followed birth. Generations moved forward, carried by women who rarely had the chance to rest, yet continued anyway. These women did not think of themselves as brave in the way we describe bravery today. They did not see survival as heroic. It was simply life. Pregnancy was woven into daily existence, alongside work, care, hunger, prayer, and fatigue. A woman carried life while walking long distances, while grinding grain, while caring for other children, while managing a home. Her body adapted because it had to. There was little space for fear, even when fear was present. There was no choice but to continue. When birth arrived, it was faced with quiet focus. Women relied on familiar hands, familiar voices, and long-held traditions. Pain was not avoided, it was endured. Hope was not loud, it was whispered. Every birth carried risk, yet every birth also carried the possibility of continuation. And when a child survived, when a mother recovered, the moment passed quickly, absorbed back into daily life. There were no long celebrations, no pause for reflection. Life moved forward, as it always had. Many women did not survive. That truth remains heavy and real. Yet even in loss, communities adjusted. Other women stepped in. Children were raised by sisters, aunts, grandmothers. Life did not stop. It reshaped itself. This resilience was not spoken of, but it lived quietly in every household, every village, every generation. As you listen now, resting in the comfort of modern safety, it is gentle to remember that your existence is connected to these women. Every life today passed through countless moments of uncertainty in the past, through bodies that endured without comfort, through nights filled with worry and mornings that still required work. These women did not leave written stories, but they left something far more lasting. They carried life forward. Now, as the night grows deeper and quieter around you, allow this story to soften and fade. You do not need to hold on to it. Let the past rest where it belongs. Let your body remain still. Let your breathing stay slow and gentle. Just as those women trusted the passing of time, you can trust this moment of rest. The story is complete. The journey is finished. Life continues quietly forward. Good night, and sleep peacefully.